So from a tenant's point of view, the first key thing to think about is the rent and any rent review provisions. Whilst the initial rent will usually be at the forefront of a potential tenant's mind, it's really important to consider whether there might be any rent review provisions during the term of the lease, because these allow the landlord to increase the rent during the term. So it's really important to make sure that those rent review provisions don't allow the landlord to unfairly inflate the rent where a tenant would have no control over that. Secondly, it's really important to make sure that you're fully happy with the condition and the repair of the property that you've found at the outset. Most often than not, a commercial lease will pass all the repair obligations onto the tenant, regardless of the state that it's in at the time that they take the lease on. So if you sign a lease with full repairing obligation, you're responsible for those repairs, even if they were already in existence at the time you took the lease on and you weren't responsible for them. So that's really key. Lastly, one of the key things to check is any other costs that the tenant might be responsible for. Whilst a tenant will usually look initially at the rent and focus on that, there will very likely be other costs that the tenant will be liable for. These are things like rates, insurance premiums that are often passed on to the tenants for insuring the building, and also service charge. If the property is part of a building or part of an estate, there may well be a service charge that the landlord will charge to the tenants to maintain any common areas or common services that they provide. So it's key to know exactly what those costs are so that you can factor them in before you sign on the dotted line.